here in midwinter in beautiful Southern California, testing the new 2020 Suzuki GSX-S1000 Katana against the Kawasaki Z900RS. The year is 2020. The Kawasaki first came out in 1971. How many years ago is that? 50?
I don't know.
40,
I wasn't around then.
49 years ago. The first year had the last year's paint job on it, the root beer, solid on the gas tank. The second year was striped just like that one. I remember it well because I was 13 years old. I just had my first sexual experience. I remember it well because I was alone at the time and that bike rolled down the street. I mean, this was shortly after the Beatles broke up and we were just kids. And then 40 years ago, the Katana appeared in 1981. And you can kind of see it in the architecture too. Kawasaki's going with the old steel tube frame and you know, the kind of bread loaf seat. 10 years later, the Suzuki Katana gets here and it really breaks the mold with its Hans Muth styling and everything. They call them, you know, all the Japanese bikes kind of looked alike. Before then, they all had a round headlight, steel tube frame, across the frame 4. Then this thing got here with a square headlight, which is not square anymore. It's kind of a cool trapezoidal shape now. But enough about that. We wanted to bring them out here and ride them, see which one we like best. So we did. We took a day off from our computer screens and came up to the Crystal Cafe to ride them on some roads. But this is after we've had the bikes at our houses. For the last couple weeks, I've been using mine to get around town, to go out to places and stuff. Put my little buddy Christine on back of both of them. She prefers the Kawasaki seat on the back. I think the seat's a little bit lower. It's easier to clamber onto. It has less of a step than the Suzuki, which makes it a little better for passengers. The suspension feels like it might be a little bit softer than the Suzuki, and that one's pretty fun for around town. Not that this one's any kind of a slouch. I really enjoy riding this bike around town too. That one's like maxes out at like 100 horsepower, I think. But the last one we tested only made like 97 horsepower. We're going to take them to the dyno the day after tomorrow, so we'll have the dyno charts posted right here, so we'll know exactly. But the last Suzuki made like 135 horsepower on top at like 10,500 RPM, I think. That one made not as much horsepower, but at only like 8,500 RPM. So that one's kind of good for trolling around town. Really torquey, easy to, it idles down to like 1,200 RPM as you're going through town, lane splitting through town to get wherever you need to get. But this one's no slouch either. You could let the clutch out at this one on 1,500 RPM and it goes along, and 5th gear, lane splitting too. I mean, they're both super easy bikes to ride because they both have more horsepower than they need. This is the old GSX-R1000 motor from like 2002, and here the old K5. And in the morning we hadn't ridden in a while, the tires were kind of cold and stuff, so we're kind of taking it easy. And it felt like the Kawasaki keeps up with the Katana pretty easy on the curvy roads, because the Kawasaki does have a little more oomph coming off the corner and stuff. And then it seems like as we got warmed up, the tires got warmer, the road got warmer, the sun came up a little bit. It seems like the faster you go, the harder you push it. The Katana seems to kind of come to the fore. It's a little, springs are a little stiffer, a little bit more damping, keeps it all under control better. And when you rev it up, maybe 500 or 1,000 RPM higher than you've got that one, maybe you're a gear lower on here coming off a corner, this thing really takes off. This thing, then you start to remember it's the old GSX-R1000 up under here.
Yeah, I mean, and what are these two bikes based off of? That one's kind of based off of the GSX-S1000 platform. Yeah. And this is based off of like the Z900 platform.
Off the Z900, which we really liked.
Yeah, two bikes that are, you know, have plenty of get up and go and naked bikes. It's kind of cool just to see, you know, Kawasaki and Suzuki put their retro spin on it from bikes that were so iconic, like the Z1 and the original Katana.
Exactly.
It's pretty cool. And I think, too, with these two bikes, Kawasaki's gone the route of keeping it a little bit more retro. You know, they really tried to keep the retro look and whatnot. Yep. Where I think the Suzuki is clearly, you know, kind of like what Honda did with the Neo Sports line of those kind of bikes. It's kind of the same thing here with the Suzuki. It's definitely, you know, kind of got that neo-retro vibe.
They both have such beautiful styling touches to them in different ways. Like the Kawasaki, the paint on that thing's pretty amazing.
It's incredible.
I don't know if we can get closer with the camera and see the sparkly green and the stripes. It's really, really nice. And the trim that they did on the front fender, the headlights are really cool. And they got the old-timey twin speedometer, odometer, just like the old days, just like the original Z1 used to have.
Yeah, I mean, and with the Suzuki, again, you've got all these nice little touches with the new LED lighting throughout. Makes it look really crisp and modern. Obviously, it's based off that Hans Muth design. But then, like, one of the, probably my favorite feature of the Katana is the display. It's a pretty big, like, LCD display, but it kind of looks like an old Game Boy.
In addition to changing the bodywork, that they gave it more premium suspension. I think the specs are all the same, but it seems like it works better than the S. It seems more sporty and kind of more plush at the same time. It seems like they took some of the rough edges of the S, which was a great bike because it was less than $10,000, and they kind of polished it as well. They should have, since the price on this one came up quite a bit.
Yeah.
But
what is the price on that one?
I believe you said it's like $13,500, isn't it?
$13,500, yeah.
So when we were at the launch last year, we were like, if they could keep it under $12,500, it'll be a great deal, and we bet they'll sell a bunch of them. But price creep comes up, and the Kawasaki's still only 11 something, isn't it? So
11.2, yeah.
if you're worried about the money, lots of people aren't. They just like this bike, and more power to them. I think it's worth that much, because on a curvy road like this, I could go as good on this as I could on a GSX-R1000, I think.
More comfortable, too.
I've never been on a GSX-R1000 in such a long time. We'll have to get one of those into a comparison. They're both so comfortable. That one might be a little bit upright. The bars on that one might be a little bit higher, and the foot pegs a little bit lower. That one drags its foot pegs a little bit in the tight corners, but just a little bit. If we could probably fix it by putting more preload in the rear shock. We don't have the tool, but it's not really a problem.
The Z900 feels really nimble, especially around town. I just feel like it feels really well balanced, and to me it's almost easy enough to tiptoe around like a dirt bike is. Like you can really just go really slow speed on that thing, no clutch, you know, just super easy to kind of tiptoe around on, whereas the Katana feels like a 1,000cc motorcycle. It feels like a big motorcycle, and moving it around, the steering lock is also, you don't get as much of a wide open steering lock as you get with the Z900 on the Katana, but it's really just those really tight maneuvers. I don't know, you know, if you're lane splitting, if you're going around town, downtown LA, New York, wherever, you know, getting around, the Z900RS kind of lets you get that done a little bit easier. It doesn't feel as, or it feels a little bit more balanced to me than the Katana.
They're actually both really good at zooming around town, not just in town, but between towns on the freeway in our beautiful megalopolis. Because they lean just a little bit, just enough to offset the wind at 70 or 80 miles an hour, it seems like. The brakes are like really great on both motorcycles. They're very, very modulable, I think. We had a little trouble with kind of the Kawasaki, felt kind of soft in the front, and we found that the settings were off, and we put them in the middle of the settings, both rebound and compression damping, and kind of fixed what was wrong with it. It started going better. So the clickers actually work. They actually do things on these bikes.
Well, and I think too, if we're, you know, going back to talking about taking these to Vegas, the Kawasaki still has a 4.5 gallon gas tank, whereas from the GSX-S, now with this new Katana, it's got a 3.2 gallon tank, so you got even less range there. Yeah,
that was kind of a sore point when they reskinned it with this bodywork. The gas
looks
tank
good,
shrunk.
But
so yeah. So in sporting use, up here the little mile per gallon calculator usually says about 35. I think it's closer to 40, 45 when you're in town though. So you could go, you need to fill it up every 120 miles to feel good about it. That light's looking at you all the time. Low fuel, you can't ignore it. So that's kind of the downside of the Katana. Upsides though, I really like, well, these bikes are all about the styling, let's face it. Because if you just wanted one of these to ride around, you get the GSX-S1000 for quite a bit less money. And it wouldn't be quite as nice as this bike. The fueling on here feels like it's better than the S model used to be, which we complained about. And I complained about the fueling on this when I went to the launch in Japan last year too. But up here, it's not bothering me as much as it did on more flowing roads. It's only when you get into the real tight second gear stuff. At higher RPM, when you got the thing above 7,000 or 8,000 RPM, it's kind of jerky on the gas off and on. Most of the time, it's not bad at all. I think overall, at the end of the day, we're going to say the Katana is a little bit more sporty. If you want a bike to come up, maybe you could do a track day on this bike, on the Katana.
Yeah.
You could do a track day on here, and if you're good, you wouldn't be that far off the pace if you had good tires. In fact, the tires, one of the things we're talking about, these are kind of the latest generation Dunlop Road Smart Sport Max that I was told were made specifically for the Katana. And it seems like they're a little bit lower profile than the older Dunlops that are on there. And that might be a big part of why the Katana just feels a little bit more sporty. It feels a little bit more precise and controllable. But if you're going around town, you're going to be going down with your best gal on back of there, going places on that, then the Kawasaki kind of rises to the top then. So it's like, what are you going to do with your motorcycle? Are you going to come up here and ride like a maniac? Or I'm going Katana. Are you going to use it for around town and commuting? I like the Kawasaki. But there's pretty good crossover. What's that called, a Venn diagram? They're both, a lot of them are in the middle there. They're both good at both of those things. So I think they're great motorcycles. I'm glad I lived long enough to see that 40 years later, and this one 30 years after the original. Who'd have thunk they'd bring them back?
I think everything that you mentioned with the Suzuki Katana, with it being a little more sporty, it kind of feels smoother as you start riding faster. Yeah. Whereas this one, you kind of feel, okay, the suspension isn't quite up for it as much as the Katana is.
Kind of faster you go.
Yeah, and same thing with the tires. When you're going into a turn, everything's smoother through there. Whereas these, you kind of, they move really quickly, but that one just kind of is more predictable as it just goes in smoothly. But yeah, I mean, I really like this one for around town because of how nimble it is, and but that was my preferred steed out here. It's
kind of down to the styling and what you're going to do with the bike. You're going to ride more sporty. I think for me, I really like the styling of the Katana, even though I really like that one too. I just like the little bit more modern look of the Katana, which I wasn't that crazy when I saw it at the EICMA show that year, but then it's kind of growing on me. I like the old GSX-R frame poking out there. The K5 engine's a monster. I mean, it's just it's a nice engine, but this thing will bury it. It's 135 horsepower or something. More power is always more. We always like more. Well, you know what to do if you like the video, and how could you not like it? Hit the like button. If you don't like the video, it's Ryan Adams' fault. I think that's it for now. I think that's all we got. Hope you enjoyed it. We do our best. We do what we can do. We're not actors. We don't even get paid. We do get paid. Anyway, see you next time.